Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is absolutely wonderful. And in a surprise to nobody announcement, all of last week's episodes were recorded because I was in GenCon, Indianapolis. GenCon 2022, my 27th year at GenCon, and I want to come back to that. We'll talk about that in a second. But just Gen Con in general. I went, as always, for the last 8 years as a member of Team Portal Games. And we were showing Brazil and Gutenberg. I had an absolute blast. We sold out of both very early Friday morning. We almost sold out of both on Thursday. And we had a great time. We had a wonderful team. Ignacy and his son were here still from their trip. They came to Dice Tower and just stayed for a month. And we had just a really good experience and played or showed a lot of games, sold a lot of games. And I got to play games. I played games pretty much every night, at least something. It was small card game, big card game. I played a little oink game called Scout, and we loved it. And our friend who you'll find in the comments pretty regularly, Steve, bought me a copy and brought it to the booth. So thank you, Steve, for Scout. That was awesome. Big smile. Like, yeah, that's great. Thank you. Like, he was paying attention, right? And I picked up some other things, just trades with friends, that sort of stuff. But I had a really good show. I had a really good time. This Gen Con felt normal-ish. You could tell there were less people. The number that I was told was 50,000. I think a normal Gen Con is like 70, so we were shy. But the hall felt almost as full as it normally would. The aisles felt just as narrow as always and hard to get through. But there was definitely a different atmosphere in the whole place. It's hard to really I don't know how to put it into words unless you were there and you've been there for years and years and years. It's hard to say in words, but it felt almost normal. It felt good. It felt very good. I made a goal before I left for Gen Con to reconnect with old friends and tell them I still think about them and I'm sorry that I'm not a better communicator, and to make new friends. And I achieved both of those things. I met lots of old friends and we chatted and hung out, and I made new friends, quite a few new friends, and so that's good. And I just had a really good time. It's exhausting, but it's good. So going back to the 27-year thing. So my first Gen Con was 1996 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Gen Con from then until 2002 was in Milwaukee. It moved to Indianapolis in 2003. The thing that when I was Sunday, I got to wander a little bit more and really kind of pay attention to what was going on. You know, the thing about being an exhibitor at a show like that is when I get away from my booth, I need to go to the restroom, I need to go have a meeting, I need to I have a friend I need to go see or want to go see. I have a very clear target, and that is not the way to navigate the space, right? Because I know exactly where I'm headed and I'm going there. Everybody else in that hall is just wandering and looking, and they're just taking their sweet time and doing this, and I'm, just trying to get past them. So as I got to do a little bit of that on Sunday, because the hall was a little thinner, it's usually not as busy, I got to kind of really observe. I meandered. I meandered with the crowd and got to observe things. And I think back to when I first got into this in the 90s, going to a show, it was like 95% white men and 5% other. That includes white women, people of color, women of color, all that. It was by far and large white men, period, in those halls. This Gen Con I saw lots more marginalized people. I saw significantly more people of color. Sadly, that only means like 20 more, or like, not 20. It's hard to say. Like, maybe on a typical year we have 5% people of color, and this year we had 6%. It's a very tiny increase, but there was more, and it felt like there was more, and I was happy for that. I was very happy for that. The segment that I saw the biggest change in between the 90s and now was females. Gaming in the 90s and the early 2000s, when places like BGG started, it was the thing that men did. And don't tell my wife that I spent all this money. Ha ha ha. Hey, are there any games I can play with my wife? Ha ha ha. Like, it was a stupid, like, it bred this culture that just was not inclusive or good to be around. It's just toxic. I didn't like it. This time, and so in those days, you would see the man who brought his wife, and she is obviously just not into this, and he's trying to console her while he's trying to look and buy games. That was in the 90s. I saw the exact opposite this week. I saw women making the purchasing decisions and pulling their husbands along behind them, like, we're going to go do this, and that's great. Like, I really, as a father of two I'm really, I like that a lot. I like seeing that change in the world. I like seeing empowerment. And I like seeing strong and opinionated female, figures, female, like, role models, I guess. And I realize that there's a lot of people, what I'm talking about right now is the crowd, not the industry. The industry, sadly, is still dominated by white men. There is not a lot of diversity in the industry, but in the hobby, in the attendees, it's a very different feel, and it feels great. It feels really great. It feels like everybody came together to be happy together about board games. And everything else was put aside, right? I love that feeling, and yeah, I hope we see more of that in the future, for my children's sake, for my grandchildren's, for the future's sake, right? Yeah. So I had a great show. I brought home some games. I probably will put pictures in if I remember. I played a few games, and I had a lot of fun reconnecting and meeting new people. It was a really good show for me, and I'm extremely exhausted, and I'm ready for bed. So thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is nacelle. It is a noun meaning the pod-shaped outer hull of an airplane design. Bentley always has his family crest imprinted on the nacelle of each of his private planes. Nacelle, N-A-C-E-L-L-E. Is it specifically about planes? I thought maybe it was like a pod.